He stood in the middle of the living room, sipping scotch like he owned the world. Then he looked at me, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear, and said, "Well, she's just a housewife." I smiled. He had no idea who I really was. The room went quiet for a second. Then came the nervous laughter. A few people smiled politely, pretending it was just a joke. Jordan, my husband's co-worker, didn't even blink. He took another sip, clearly pleased with himself. Mark, my husband, chuckled along. "She's good at it, though," he said, patting my back like I was a Labrador that had fetched his paper. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I just kept smiling. That quiet, polite smile women are taught to give when they've been insulted in public, but aren't supposed to cause a scene. I glanced around the room. Women in expensive dresses, men in overpriced shoes, wine glasses clinking over shallow conversations. Everyone pretending everything was fine. This wasn't the first time someone had called me just a housewife, but this time it felt different. Maybe it was the way he said it. Loud, sharp, like he wanted everyone to hear. Like he wanted to put me in my place. I used to have a name people knew. I used to be someone in the room people listened to. But after I left my company, after the fallout, I chose silence. I chose peace. I chose Mark. I thought stepping back from the chaos of the tech world would mean more time for myself, for love, for something simpler. But here I was, invisible again. Or worse, laughable. Jordan kept talking, something about the market or software, or whatever else he thought made him important. The words blurred together. I wasn't really listening. What I did notice was the way my husband didn't even glance at me. No apology. No defense. No sign that what had just happened mattered to him. That I mattered. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not sadness. Clarity. Jordan thought I was small. Mark clearly agreed. And the rest of the room, well, they'd forgotten me the second the punchline was over. Fine. Let them think I'm just a housewife. They won't see me coming. And by the time they do, it'll be too late. Before I was just a housewife, people used to know my name. Not just in passing. My name was in articles, interviews, investor briefing. I founded a startup at 28, scaled it in 3 years, and sold it for more money than I could spend in a lifetime. Back then, I didn't wait for someone to introduce me. I walked into rooms where I was the youngest, the only woman, and still the one holding all the power. But success has a price, and mine came dressed like loyalty. Her name was Alana, my co-founder, best friend since college, practically my sister. We built the company together. Or at least, I thought we did. Turns out, while I was writing code at 3 a.m. and pitching to investors in glass towers, she was working deals behind my back. Backdoor meetings. Undisclosed equity grabs. The final blow came in the form of a quiet boardroom vote, where I was ousted from my own company. The headlines painted it like I stepped down. Tech darling Elena Vance exits gracefully after acquisition. Graceful. What a pretty word for betrayal. So I disappeared. I vanished from tech. No more panels. No more launches. No more 20-hour days. I didn't want to fight anymore. I wanted silence, normalcy, love. That's when Mark came along. He was steady, warm, not from my world. He said I was beautiful when I was wearing sweatpants and didn't care about what I used to be. He told me I didn't have to prove anything to anyone. "I like you humble," he said once, smiling as he watched me arrange napkins before a dinner party. "You're softer now." I remember feeling proud of that. Like humble was a compliment. So I became the woman he wanted. I planned weekends, made perfect meals, joined Pilates groups, and learned how to host with grace. I played the role so well, even I started to forget the woman I used to be. Until last night. Something about Jordan's voice. The way he dismissed me like I didn't exist. The way Mark laughed with him instead of standing beside me. It snapped me awake. I saw it all clearly now. Mark didn't love me despite my past. He loved that I left it behind. He loved me small. Manageable. He loved me quiet. But that woman, the one who used to own the room, the one they tried to erase, she never really disappeared. She was just waiting for the right reason to return. Mark thought I was spending my days at hot yoga, brunching with friends, maybe browsing candles at that overpriced home store. That's what he wanted to believe, anyway. And I let him. Every morning, I put on leggings and a ponytail, kissed him goodbye like a good wife, and walked out the door with a gym bag. Only it wasn't filled with a yoga mat. It had my laptop, a blazer, and a second phone registered under the name L. Vance. My real workday started the moment I left the driveway. The first call I made was to Nadine, my old COO. I hadn't spoken to her since the fallout. She answered on the first ring. "I thought you died," she said. I laughed. "I almost did," I replied. Then I asked if she wanted in. She didn't even hesitate. Within a week, I'd assembled a dream team, women I trusted, brilliant and battle-tested. We all had scars from men like Jordan. The ones who took credit, talked over us, or crushed us when we got too close to the top. We weren't just building a company. We were building armor. I didn't use my full name. Vance became the face of the new venture, an AI platform designed to streamline business workflows for mid-sized firms. It was clean, smart, efficient, and quiet. I wanted the product to speak for itself, not the headline. No one needed to know who was behind it. Not yet. I leased a small office in a co-working space downtown. It wasn't flashy, but it was perfect: glass walls, fast Wi-Fi, no question. I furnished it myself, mostly with second-hand pieces from Craigslist. I didn't want investors. Not this time. I wanted full control. 10-hour days flew by like nothing. I was back in my element, sleeves rolled up, brain on fire, heart pounding in the best way. At night, I came home smelling like peppermint lotion and told Mark my yoga instructor was brutal. He never looked up from his phone. He was too busy preparing for his promotion. Late nights, secretive texts, sudden business trips. I knew the signs. I saw the way he looked at his assistant, how his voice dropped when he said her name. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I had something better planned. Let him think I was folding towels and scrolling Pinterest while he played businessman and boyfriend. Let him believe I was still that quiet, grateful housewife. Because while he was chasing status in someone else's company, I was quietly building an empire of my own. It started with a simple email. A mid-sized logistics company, Global Sync, was looking to streamline their internal system. They'd heard of my new AI platform through a quiet referral. No press, no ads, just whispers in the right ear. We set up a demo under my alias, Vance. They were blown away. By the end of the week, we signed them on. What made it delicious wasn't just the size of the contract. It was who they were leaving. Mark's firm had been trying to win Global Sync for over a year. Jordan was in charge of the pitch. They sent decks, mock-ups, even flew in consultant. All of it went nowhere. Now, without warning, Global Sync pulled out of talks and signed with a company they'd never even heard of 2 weeks ago. Mine. Nadine called me the minute the paperwork cleared. "That's one hell of a first shot," she said. She was grinning through the phone. So was I. I attended the next industry event as a guest, badge clipped on, name still carefully vague. I wasn't there to network. I was there to watch. Mark and Jordan were scheduled to speak on a panel about the future of AI integration. They looked confident walking in. Jordan had that same smirk, all sharp suits and sharp elbows. Mark looked polished, his tie just slightly too tight. I watched from the back row as they talked about innovation and leadership. Big words, empty air. Then came the question from the moderator. "What's your take on Global Sync moving to a new AI platform after your firm's efforts?" Jordan's smile faltered. Just a little. Mark didn't speak. They hadn't seen it coming. And that was just the beginning. What they didn't know yet was that one of their largest clients, Kane Group, had quietly started discussions with my team too. Kane was huge, old money with deep reach in multiple industries. Jordan had personally managed their account for years. He bragged about them constantly, called them his untouchables. But one of Kane Group's board members was now an early investor in my company. A woman I'd helped years ago, when no one else would take a chance on her startup. She remembered. She called me the same night and said, "We're pulling the plug on Jordan. He's done." That was the moment I realized the game wasn't just about building something. It was about dismantling what had once dismissed me. Piece by piece, I was pulling the rug out from under them, and they still had no idea who was doing it. It was a Tuesday when I finally saw it. Mark left his phone on the counter while he showered, screen glowing with a message that lit up everything I already suspected. "Missing you already. Last night was perfect." Heart emoji. From Sophie, his assistant. He'd gotten sloppy. Maybe because I'd been so convincing. Smiling over breakfast. Asking about his meetings. Offering to steam his shirts. Playing the role he always wanted me to play. Quiet, grateful. Too distracted by recipes and scented candles to notice what was right in front of me. But I'd known for weeks. The way he smiled at his phone more than at me. How he came home late, but didn't smell like meetings. The nervous way he locked his screen when I walked by. The little tells. Only men too confident ever make them. I didn't cry. Not even a little. Instead, I picked up his phone, snapped photos of everything. Texts, call logs, calendar entries, even hotel confirmations. Then I put it back exactly where he left it, still glowing. That night, I made his favorite dinner. Lit candles. Wore the perfume he used to love. He walked in, distracted and smug. Told me I looked nice. Kissed the top of my head without looking me in the eye. I smiled and served him a plate. Over the next few weeks, I played my part perfectly. The supportive wife. The soft one. The one too naive to see the lipstick smudge on a dry-cleaned shirt. He didn't know I'd already hired a lawyer. He didn't know I was compiling everything. Documents, bank transfers, shared accounts, property holding. I had access to everything. I'd always handled the finances. He thought that made me domestic. It made me dangerous. While he sent good morning, beautiful texts to Sophie, I rerouted shared funds, opened my own accounts, and started assembling a paper trail so clean, Not even his best lawyer could untangle it. But this wasn't just about love. It was about power. Because Mark didn't just cheat on me with another woman. He laughed with another man while they both erased me. They stood in that room and decided who I was. Just a housewife. No one important. So now I was building my exit with surgical precision. Quiet, sharp, unstoppable. Every lie he told made my case stronger. Every smug look gave me another reason to win. Let him enjoy the affair. Let him think I was blind. Because when I left, I wasn't just going to take back my life. I was going to take everything. The article dropped on a Monday morning. No name, no photo, just the title. Confessions of a Ghost Founder. How Women Are Erased in Tech, and What We're Doing About It. It wasn't loud or angry. It was precise. Surgical. I told stories that mirrored my own without directly naming myself. A woman builds a company, gets betrayed, disappears. The industry shrugs. Another woman takes credit. A man promotes her. The cycle continues. By noon, it had 1 million views. By Tuesday, national media outlets were quoting it. By Friday, VCs were sharing it on LinkedIn, pretending they were outraged by a system they helped create. No one knew who wrote it. That was the fun part. But those who did know, they started whispering. And just like that, interest in my startup exploded. Requests for meetings, inquiries about partnerships. We gained 2 major clients that week alone, both of them previously courted by Jordan's firm. He was losing grip, and he didn't even know who he was losing to. Mark and Jordan read the exposé too. I watched them pass it around during a brunch with friends. They acted like they were just skimming it, but I saw the shift in their eyes. Something had rattled them. The writing was too familiar, the tone too sharp, the timing too perfect. They began asking around, who was the ghost founder behind this new tech firm stealing their clients? Who was this woman disrupting things from the shadows? No one had answers. That week, Jordan and Mark pitched to a major investor group for Series B funding. Kane Group was among them. I knew, because I'd already been invited to attend, as a guest of the board. I wore a sleek black blazer, kept my name tag simple, E. Vance. Not that anyone noticed. They were too busy sweating. I sat quietly in the second row as they fumbled through their pitch, throwing buzzwords at slides they barely understood. The investors looked bored. One even checked his watch. Then came the question they weren't ready for. Can you speak to the recent shift in client retention? Specifically, the ones moving to your competitor's platform. Jordan hesitated. Mark mumbled something about market instability. The room smelled like panic. I watched them unravel. 2 men who had laughed at me in a living room weeks ago, now completely out of their depth. I didn't need to say a word. When the meeting ended, Jordan looked over the crowd, trying to place faces. His gaze slid right past me. He didn't recognize the woman who'd written the article. He didn't recognize the woman stealing his clients. He didn't recognize the woman behind the curtain. And that's exactly how I wanted it. The table was set exactly like last time. White linen, polished silver, flickering candles. I even used the same playlist, smooth jazz and soft acoustic guitar humming in the background. Everything was perfect, just like they remembered. Jordan and Mark arrived together, loud and confident, drinks already in their hands before they even walked through the door. I smiled, kissed my husband's cheek, and welcomed them in like nothing had changed. Same room, same people, same smiles, but everything had changed. The conversation flowed around the table, startups, market trends, whose kid was applying to which ivy. I played hostess like a pro, refilling wine, laughing at the right moments, asking all the questions that made me seem harmless. Then came the moment I'd planned all week. As dessert was cleared, I stood up and said, I have a little gift for everyone, something to celebrate a new chapter. I handed each guest a sleek bottle of champagne, custom labeled in matte black with silver foil. The branding was elegant, clean. It matched my company's new launch perfectly. Jordan took his with a grin. Fancy. You opening a wine shop now, he joked. I smiled. Something like that. He turned the bottle, reading the fine print. His eyes stopped moving. There it was. The logo. Subtle, but unmistakable, just beneath the foil, embossed into the label. The exact logo printed across all my pitch decks and investor reports. He blinked, then looked up at me. I held his gaze. No smile this time. Mark was still talking to someone else, unaware of the silence stretching across Jordan's face. Jordan turned the bottle over in his hands again, as if maybe he'd read it wrong. His jaw tensed. His eyes flicked from the logo to me, then back to the logo. He knew. He realized exactly who I was. And I could see it hit him. The exposé, the client losses, the rumors of a mysterious female-led startup stealing his accounts. The investor pullouts. The floundering pitch. Me. I tilted my head slightly, raised my glass. To being underestimated, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Glasses clinked around the table. People laughed. Jordan didn't. He stared at the label like it was a loaded gun. Mark still hadn't noticed. He was too busy telling a story about the time he closed a deal without even opening his laptop. I leaned over to pour Jordan another drink, whispered just loud enough for him alone. "Still think I'm just a housewife?" He didn't say a word, but he didn't take another sip either. The collapse began on a Wednesday. Mark walked into the kitchen, pale and shaking. "We lost Falcon Tech," he said, like the words tasted bitter coming out of his mouth. Out of nowhere. They pulled the plug completely. I poured my coffee. "That's terrible," I said, without looking up. Falcon Tech was his firm's biggest client. He'd spent over a year whining, dining, and boasting about them. The bonuses, the future promotion, it was all tied to that account. And now they were gone. What he didn't know was that they were sitting in my office the day before, signing a long-term deal with my company. I didn't even have to pitch them hard. They'd read the exposé. They'd seen the direction we were heading. They wanted in. Mark thought Falcon Tech walked away because of market shifts. I knew it was because I gave them a better offer, one they couldn't refuse. That was the first piece. The second came a few days later, when a breaking news alert popped up on everyone's phone. Insider corruption scandal hits rising tech exec Jordan Wall. Anonymous sources. Internal emails leaked. Whispers of coercion, manipulated data, and closed-door deals with sketchy vendors. The kind of thing that made investors panic and boardrooms flip overnight. The anonymous tip came from me. I'd held on to it for months. Back when I was still playing house, I'd stumbled across a file in Mark's home office. Jordan bragging in print about getting away with backdoor deal. I saved it, knowing it would be useful. Then I waited. Quiet. Patient. The press tore Jordan apart. His reputation? Gone. Investors pulled out. Board removed him within 48 hours. Mark tried to keep his head above water, but the tide was coming fast. He was still under review when the audit hit. All the small things I'd collected, misfiled expenses, false invoices, quiet money movements, I turned them over to the right people. The internal audit revealed enough financial misconduct to make HR panic and legal step in. By Friday, Mark was out. No severance. No retirement plan. No desk. He came home in shock, rambling about conspiracies, betrayal, how someone had it out for him. I sat across the table, sipping tea silent. Then I slid the divorce papers across to him. He stared at them like I'd just handed him a loaded gun. "You can't be serious," he whispered. "I'm very serious. Elena, please don't do this. I lost everything." "No," I said, standing up. "You lost me. The rest is just paperwork." He begged. He cried. He even dropped to his knees. But I didn't stay. I walked out of the house the same way I walked into that marriage. Calm, collected, and completely underestimated. Not anymore. I sat across from the interviewer under bright studio lights, wearing a sharp navy blazer and a calm smile. My name flashed on the screen in bold white letters. Elena Vance, CEO of Vance Systems. It was the first time I'd shown my face publicly since disappearing from tech. "People are calling you the housewife who outsmarted Silicon Valley," the host said with a smirk. "How does that feel?" I smiled. "I prefer just CEO, but if the headline gets people listening, I'll take it." The interview aired on a Thursday. By Friday morning, my inbox had thousands of messages. Journalists, investors, women I'd never met. Some wanted quotes. Some wanted interviews. But the ones that hit me the hardest came from women writing from kitchens, cubicles, and waiting room. "You made me believe I could start over. I filed for divorce after watching your story. I signed up for coding boot camp. I'm 43. I haven't been this excited in years." They called me brave, ruthless, brilliant. But all I'd really done was stop asking for permission. The attention didn't stop. Magazine covers, podcast invites, panel offers. And for the first time in years, I accepted them, on my terms. I told the truth. About the betrayal, the silence, the comeback. But more importantly, I talked about the systems that made women disappear and the need for new ones. At my company, we changed hiring practices. We dropped pedigree bias. We mentored women returning to work after raising kids. We hired from overlooked communities, trained them, paid them what they were worth, and never made them prove their worth twice. I wasn't building a company anymore. I was building a legacy. Nadine pulled me aside one day after a team meeting, grinning. "You realize you're someone's hero now, right?" I laughed. "That's terrifying." "No," she said. "That's necessary." And maybe she was right. Because while Mark faded into a quiet, embarrassed corner of corporate exile and Jordan disappeared under a thick cloud of lawsuits, I stepped onto stages I used to be locked out of. Not because I needed the spotlight, but because there were women out there watching, still being told they were just a housewife, just a secretary, just a girl who didn't get the job. And I wanted them to know, we're never just anything. We are everything. We always have been. They just never saw us coming. The venue hadn't changed. Same marble floors. Same crystal light fixtures hanging like icicles from the ceiling. Even the champagne glasses looked the same, delicate and tall, meant to be held more than sipped. But this time, everything was different. This time, I wasn't in the corner of the room smiling through small talk. I wasn't holding my husband's coat or checking the roast in the oven. This time, I stood behind the podium, center stage, with my name projected in bold letters behind. Elena Vance, keynote speaker. The room was packed: investors, founders, executives, press. People who once ignored me now leaned in to catch every word. They laughed when I joked. They nodded when I told the truth. They clapped loud and long. And in the very back, half in the shadows, sat Mark. He looked smaller somehow. Or maybe I had just grown. He didn't approach me after the speech. He didn't smile. He just watched, arms folded. A guest at a party where he no longer belonged. Jordan wasn't there at all. He hadn't shown his face at any industry event in months. The last anyone heard, he'd moved to a different state, trying to start over somewhere no one recognized his name. But me? I was exactly where I was meant to be. After the speech, a line of people waited to talk to me. Young women, older women, even a few men who admitted they'd never thought about what it meant to underestimate someone until they read my story. I listened. I hugged. I thanked them. And through it all, I stayed grounded, not in bitterness, but in clarity. One woman, barely out of college, looked at me with wide, hopeful eyes and said, "How did you survive it all?" I smiled. "I didn't survive it," I said. "I rebuilt it, brick by brick." As the evening wound down, I stepped out onto the balcony. The city lights blinked below. The air was cool and quiet. Behind me, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses floated through the doors. I took a slow breath and let it all settle in. The full circle, the weight I'd carried, the power I'd reclaimed. They had laughed at me once, dismissed me, erased me, but I'd returned not to prove them wrong. I'd returned because this was mine to begin with. And as I looked out over the skyline, calm and clear, I thought only one thing. I wasn't just a housewife. I was the storm they never saw coming.